This video lesson covers Chapter 1 in Critical Thinking, Reading, and Writing, and the chapter is called Critical Thinking. The first thing I want to do, since we're just beginning this semester, is to just say a couple things about the textbook. My choice of this textbook was not accidental. I considered a lot of different textbooks. The reason I chose this one is because it so carefully goes through all the steps that you need to become a good critical thinker, apply those thinking skills to do critical reading, and then critical writing. The authors are a philosopher and an English professor from Tufts University, and they offer extensive information on critical thinking, reading, and writing, as you might expect from the title. Reading the chapters carefully and taking notes will be vital to your success in this course. And though I'll recommend specific pages for reading every week and every lesson, you should probably read the whole chapters because there's a lot of readings in addition and analysis of those readings that are going to help you understand the concepts. So first, what is critical thinking? It's a phrase you've probably heard a lot since you started college, but what does it actually mean? Chapter 1 offers extended information on what it means to think critically. This video lesson is going to cover the highlights of that chapter, and I've also created a PDF version of the slides that you can review if you'd like. So first, and this is all on page 3, the authors of the textbook seek to define and explain to their audience, to their readers, what critical thinking is. First, they say to think critically is to eliminate reveries, and that means you're getting rid of sort of daydreams and fanciful thoughts and things that don't really make sense, ideas that aren't really logical, and you're trying to focus on logical, sound ideas instead of ideas that don't really make much sense. You're also going to seek to eliminate snap judgments, and what that means is maybe not your first reaction to a topic when you hear it. Some of us hear steroids in baseball, and we immediately have our snap judgment. We know how we feel about that. We know what we think. We don't need to hear anything else. But to critically think about a topic is to put those snap judgments out of our minds and really start to think of it with a more open mind. And critical thinking implies conscious, deliberate inquiry. It means you're thinking about thinking. You're putting all your efforts into thinking about something, into thinking carefully, and being conscious of the process. So to get started with critical thinking, the authors of our book tell us critical thinkers seek to draw intelligent conclusions. So again, what that means is we're not looking for things that are too daydreamy, too unreal. We're not looking for conclusions to come to conclusions that aren't logical. We want to go through a deliberate, set process to come up with logical, intelligent conclusions. To be able to draw those intelligent conclusions, we have to be open to new ideas. We should also be ready to question our own ideas, assumptions, and our own evidence. So before we decide on answers, we really want to think, how did we come to that answer? Look back at the evidence that we're using to support an answer. Look back at the evidence we're supporting to come to a conclusion, any assumptions we may have made that led us to our conclusions, and really think about the process, the thinking process all the way through to make sure that we're questioning ourselves at every stage. So this isn't going to be an easy task. It's not easy to stop and really think critically about things, especially controversial topics we're sure we know how we think. But to be better students, to be better in our jobs, to be better in the world, in our relationships with our family and friends, critical thinking can really help us. And the best aid to critical thinking, according to your book, is a tool that you can use to think critically. You already know about this tool, and it's a pencil. Not literally a pencil. You can use a pen, you can use anything. But the idea is that just sometimes taking a pen or pencil to paper can help you get some ideas down and aid your thinking. How does writing aid thinking? These are things we're going to work on all semester. We're going to go through what assumptions are, how to examine assumptions, how to evaluate evidence, how to do all those things. But writing is going to be an important part of that. And your book uses an example of a shopping list. Sometimes when you write down ideas, these two ideas here is what your book uses in reference to a shopping list. Sometimes writing down ideas expands your thinking process. Jotting down your initial thoughts and ideas can lead to more thoughts and ideas. So your book asks you to think about this this as if you were writing a grocery list. If I knew I was going to the grocery store to buy chips because my friends are coming over, that might be the first thing I'd write down. And then writing down chips might help me remember, oh, I probably should get some salsa or something to go with those chips. And then maybe writing those things down, chips and salsa, makes me think, I'm also going to need some paper napkins. My friends might want something to drink. I'll need to get something to drink, maybe some paper cups. So all these things, jotting down those initial ideas, the chips led to the salsa and all those other ideas. So when you're thinking through a complicated idea, having a pen and paper or a pencil and paper can really help you get through those ideas. It's important, though, as you write, to make sure that we're still thinking critically, right? So we're questioning our own ideas as we go. We're questioning our own assumptions. We're questioning our own evidence. And these are all things we're going to work on this semester. But the idea is to really write and think through issues instead of just clinging to our pre-established opinions and viewpoints about ideas. So these are things we'll work on. Your book offers you in this chapter an example on page 5 of writers using something called clustering to think through an issue, using mapping pros and cons on page 11. And then there's a student essay that you can read from pages 11 to 14 of a student writing through her ideas and coming to a conclusion. Okay, the chapter ends with a checklist, and this is a checklist that I would like you all to keep in mind for the entire semester. Okay, I'll come back to it, I'll remind you of it. But remember this checklist as we work through working on discussion boards together, as you go into writing assignments, and especially when you get to the final research paper. The idea for the final research paper is not just to state 6 pages of your opinion on something. So to get to the point of doing something more than that, you're going to have to keep these things in mind. The first thing we have to keep in mind is our attitude. We have to make sure our thinking shows imaginative open-mindedness and intellectual curiosity. We have to be willing to examine our assumptions, entertain new ideas. Okay? And most of all, it's going to take some exertion. If a person decided to run a 5K race and she or he had never run even a mile, it's going to take some exertion for that person. That person's going to have to put in some effort to learn how to do that and become a better runner and get to the point of being able to successfully run a 5K race. We're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to be willing to exert ourselves to do research. It's going to take time to do research and find valid sources for that final paper, to acquire information, and then to look at that information that we found and evaluate it and see where it fits and whether it's credible evidence. So we have to be willing to exert ourselves. These are the attitudes. Okay, so stay open-minded, be ready to exert yourself. The other thing are skills that we're going to work on throughout the semester. Okay, so you need to make sure that you can summarize an argument accurately, that you know how to evaluate assumptions, evidence, and inferences. Those things may not make sense to you right now. They're all things we're going to work on this semester. And then you have to think about presenting your ideas effectively. Okay, so they have to be organized, for example, in a way that's appropriate for an academic audience, because that's who you're going to be writing for in this class. But all those other things that are going to come in are going to be language. Have you supported and cited correctly? All the things we'll work on this semester. So part of it is about keeping your attitude correct for critical thinking as we move into critical reading and writing, and then some skills that we'll work on. Chapter 1 ends with this checklist, and these are things, like I said, I want you to keep in mind as you move through the semester. Keep your mind open to new ideas, be willing to explore and examine views that you hold and ideas that you have to be a successful critical thinker and writer, and most of all, be ready to exert yourself.